Hello, everyone. This is Andreas Pop Culture Guy. Today is the latest Andreas Pop Culture Retrospective slash review. It is on the 40th anniversary of Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. Now, happy 40th anniversary, Star Trek III. Now, let me go with the summary of the film. Pretty much, this film takes our veterinary crew of the original Enterprise, of course, led by James T. Kirk, played by William Shatner, and he and the crew arrive in the space station for repairing for their starship after the immensement I say the fantastical or dreadful attack of Khan back in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. But they quickly must set out again to space to search for their now deceased friend Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, who is found alive on the planet Genesis that Dr. Marcus and Kirk's former lover and son Dave created back in Star Trek II. They also had to face also new enemies in the film. This time, the Klingons, commanded by the wonderful actor Christopher Lloyd, in this film's antagonist. And this Star Trek is principally the follow-up to the Wrath of Khan, as I brought up before, that finished with the death of Khan, played by the late great Ricardo Montalban, and Spock, where Spock had to sacrifice his life to save his friends. Overall, I have to say that everyone talks about the odd numbers for Star Trek movies, but I don't think it's really true. I think each substance installment has its flaws and cons and pros. Some could be the best Star Trek films, like Star Trek Two, or Four, or First Contact, or JJ's first reboot, or Star Trek Beyond. Star Trek Three: The Search for Spock, and Star Trek Three: The Search for Spock, for me, in my opinion, is a very good movie in the long running franchise to date. If I recall, at the end of Star Trek Two, Mr. Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, gave his life to save his friends, as I mentioned before, and his coffin was shipped up to Genesis planet, experiment co-created by Kirk's son David, as I mentioned, which led to the resurrection of Spock, as they didn't know that it could do that. As far as how good this film is, I think that Search for Spock just has few notches below the Star Trek to Wrath of Khan's story. The story could have used a little tightening, and it's a little slow in the first half. But when the film picks up the pace with a thrilling second half, will Spock be rescued? Overall, I think the special effects on this film were some part, particularly the fight scenes on the exploding Genesis planet. It just reminds me of another episode of Star Trek, episode either the Ritual or the Next Generation, a couple of years. I seen better special effects with the fire on a soap opera, but then that's is okay. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but the Ritual Genesis trilogy, some of the budgets for 2 to 4 were somewhat very percent budgets, very low budgets, not high budgets like the Star Wars films during the 1980s. But that's acceptable. That's fine. You don't want these movies to go over budget, and sometimes you don't know they will perform well as it could have. However, since when the film came out, we needed Spock to return to the living, through today's audience could understand the significance of killing him off at the end of two. Now, I think everybody knows to answer the question is, for me, as how Leonard Nimoy did in his theatrical um, director debut with Star Trek 3, and he did a very good job. I think he's really the top director for this franchise after Nicholas Meyer and Jonathan Frakes. He did even a better job on the next film, Star Trek 4. I think that's his best film in of director. Star Trek 3 has all the other elements as well: action, special effects, and performances, all above average. The cast does a good job as usual. Shatner, Kelley, and the rest of the Enterprise crew are back in a good form. Lloyd, as I mentioned before, is a exceptional villain here. I wish he had more time to shine. I think he's somewhat undermined too much with his cronies, plus the overshadow of the previous villain, Khan, from Star Trek 2. Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock is a brilliant film. It's arguably one of the best in the entry series, but it can never top Star Trek 2 or Star Trek First Contact for me. It's far from perfect, I have to say, with one or two plot elements looking rush or irrelevant, but it still possesses enough thought and love for it to be quality piece of entertainment, which I do agree. As a middle part of the ongoing trilogy, it deals with the rebirth for Spock and allows us to say goodbye to another old friend, that being the original U.S. Enterprise and CC 1701. Star Trek 3 Search for Spock is a fun movie which was a perfect setup for the next Star Trek adventure, which also leads on a brilliant to the 1986 fourth installment of the series, Star Trek 4 The Voyage Home, which is sillier, more easygoing, and this time is the time travel story for our crew. Thank you for joining this 40th anniversary of Star Trek 3 Search for Spock. Very fun movie. I know a lot of people put this low on their list, but I think it's a good movie. So thank you for joining this latest Andre's Pop Culture retrospective slash review on Star Trek 3 The Search for Spock's 4-year anniversary. I will be back again for more retrospective slash reviews. And thank you. Ciao, and have a nice day. Bye.